Hello and welcome back, and thanks for tuning in. Today we have a lot of reading in preparation for the first class on Monday. This is going to be contracts. We're going to do the case on Lucy versus Zehmer, and also before that we're going to do the overview, taking apart from J. Fingman's law, when a deal is a deal, to kind of give a big overview of the contracts course. And I'm also going to read an essay by a law professor on CARE called How to Read a Legal Opinion. The professor gave those out as optional readings for some students because they kind of like having the big picture before going into the details. I am one of those kind of students, and I would recommend it because you don't want to get lost in the details. So we're going to do those today, and I'll give you my thoughts, what I learned from it, and kind of where I think it's going to go, and questions that I came up with that I'm going to take to the professor. So stay tuned. I got blue light glasses, because reading from a computer screen. We'll get into the books later. All right, so I am done reading that. That was just the overview for contracts. I got the pages. So it's chapter 6 of J.'s Feynman's Law 101. When is a deal a deal? And it pretty much gives a run through of contract law, starting from what is contract law, why do we need it, how it's used, what makes a contract, what doesn't make a contract, how is it enforceable, what are some things that make it non-enforceable. It even gets down to the people, like who can make a contract, with such as minors and those and mentally handicapped. So it was very good, and I'd recommend that read. And from the reading and how the overview of contract law is, I'm kind of seeing that it's gonna seem kind of linear, or maybe like a checks and balance. Like when there's an issue, once you have that issue and you have the elements of a contract, such as seeing a couple like offer, acceptance, it's like promise, all of those, you pretty much look through the details of the case and see, okay, where is the offer, okay, has it been accepted, and is there like a promise being had, essentially. So when you're going through those, kind of keep that in mind. So I'm guessing there is going to be some memorization on all the elements for any kind of certain term you're having in the contract. Now, the next little reading is just an article on how to read a legal opinion. It's kind of give a guide to, I guess, the language of the judges as they're making their opinion and when they're concluding a case and why they conclude it such a way. So it's an optional read as well, but I'm also going to read it because we get into our first case afterwards, the Lucy versus Zehmer case. So you don't want to go into reading a case without knowing what to look for. So I'm going to do this quick read, and then we're going to get into the case. So yes, that was a good read. I am going to now finally get into the Lucy versus Zehmer case. Now, since the professor provided the background context information for the course already, I think I'm going to go in and try to book highlight with this one. Now, I got this idea from the book I read, The Law School Confidential, which is a complete guide. It's by Robert Miller. I'll post that information in the details. But essentially says after you get the overview of the course and what you're going to read, you pretty much highlight using a color code system. We got highlighting green for the facts, yellow for the critical legal reasoning, red for the holding, the court, and the procedural posture, blue for the important precedents cited in their holdings. Precedents are like the cases that came before your case that's kind of included as part of the reasoning. and orange are for the important dissenting remarks. So I'm not much of a highlighter, but I'm going to use this method. I'm going to read through the case first without highlighting anything, just to kind of sense of the direction of it. And once I have that, then I'm going to go and highlight these important things and kind of use that as far as what I'm going to bring to class in preparation for discussion. So let's get to it. Don't forget to like and comment below your thoughts, your trainings. What did you like? What would you like to see in the video? Don't forget to subscribe. All right, I had a little more background reading to do, but here's the actual first case. He had it for a printout for us. Lucy versus Zehmer. It's the Supreme Court of Appeals in Virginia in 1954. And then here you have the little subscript of where to find in the book. So I'm going to do my skim through just to see if I can get a general idea of where this is heading before I go through and do my read and try to highlight the important things, such as the facts, the critical reasoning, the holding, and important precedents and important dissenting opinions. All right, I had a little more background reading to do, but here's the actual first case. He had it for a printout for us. Lucy versus Zehmer. It's the Supreme Court of Appeals in Virginia in 1954. And then here you have the little subscript of where to find in the book. So I'm going to do my skim through just to see if I can get a general idea of where this is heading before I go through and do my read and try to highlight the important things, such as the facts, the critical reasoning, the holding, and important precedents and important dissenting opinions. All right, so I just finished my skim through, and things I've noted was the end of this case, it was reversed and sent back to the lower courts, because was at the Supreme Court level, to make changes. But the main takeaway, I think, is that the meeting of the mind, like mental assent, isn't needed. So in summary, kind of what happened was Zehmer was selling the farm. They made a deal between Zehmer and Lucy that Zehmer would sell the farm to Lucy. They kind of wrote it out on a bar napkin. They had been drinking at the time. But Zehmer, his defense is that, hey, it was a joke. I wasn't really intending to sell this. And Lucy thought, no, this is a solid deal, so you have to sell it. Now, some of the issues I'm thinking were, well, how was Lucy supposed to know it was a joke? Is the intentions needed for a contract to be binding? I guess that's what they're going to figure out there. And also the drinking, how drunk was he? Is that a consideration as well? And also lastly, the fact that, his wife signed the paper instead of Lucy himself? Because there's two Lucys in here. They're kind of co-complainants. But essentially, it's all about your actions taken after the contract on whether or not it's binding, not what your thoughts and intentions are. So if you're joking and the other person don't know you're joking, then the contract is still legally binding because it's your actions. They discussed this writing even though they were in a bar. He wasn't too drunk because he still drove home because his wife, actually recommended him to drive. And his actions showed that it was just a normal contract. And the actions of the other person going to get the money also shows that he believed that it was not in jest as well. That's kind of what made it binding. But to sum it up, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go through, highlight what I think are the facts, the reasoning and the holding, things like that. And I'm going to make a list and save it. And then at the end, after class tomorrow, I'm going to compare what I had versus what the professor had. And that's where I'm going to get my questions. That's where I'm going to see what's actually important. Because this is, the first reading before class. So I'm not really sure. I only have my, opinions on what I think is important. But I'm going to compare and contrast so that you guys can also have a look on, depending on your professor. It's all about your professor, how your studies should go. So, all right, so I got my highlights here. You'll see all of that later. But I notice here, here are my facts. But I notice with this recommendation in this system, it doesn't say anything about the issues with any particular case. And their issues, I know there are issue spotter exams, so being able to spot the issues are very important. So I'm going to also include what I think the main issues are as well, because there are a lot of facts in the case, but there are facts that are just facts that happened, but they're also relevant facts, like facts that are actually what's being reasoned upon or in dispute, because sometimes both parties agree that, yeah, this happened. And other times they don't agree. They say, like, this is what I think happened and this is what I think happened. And then there's just kind of opinions. You can't really use those as facts. So I'm also going to put that there, kind of my own spin on it. But yeah, check it out. I think I'll just do a separate video. So I'm going to post my thoughts here in this video. And it's going to be a part 1. And then afterwards, you guys can post your thoughts and comments where you think this case is going. If you're also a law student and you're reading Lucy versus Zehmer, it's usually the first one you get in the contracts class. Post what you thought, and then we can compare and contrast the way our professors think in the next part 2 of the video. So that's all for this one. Stay tuned, stay learning.